Hello, everyone. This is Aaron Davis on the EvoSec podcast. I'm here to do a special episode. I'm actually sitting in my car at a gig. I just had been reading up on some information, continually listening to what's being said on the national media, from conservative to, to even the mass, liberal media, as we know. Now, again, I want to comment further on the Uvalde, Texas mass murder, and then, of course, mass indiscriminate murder in general. The problem in these terrible events that they are taken advantage of to come against those of us that are Second Amendment advocates, and we advocate for the other extra governmental rights. In other words, preceding government. The government does not grant us those rights. The government is supposed to protect those rights. Now, to me, it is a strategy used. They thrust us into this rhetorical defense to make us and frame us as uncaring during these terrible tragedies, therefore making those that advocate for guns that we really are one of the main problems, or at least a problem in stopping implementing real policy that will help. But we are the complete opposite. We know of and advocate for real and effective policy to reduce these events. Now remember, with the millions of people in this country, you cannot stop mass murder. Let's be very clear. This is mass murder where the murderer chose a firearm. Now, again, here's a good example. Here's something that could have stopped this event. It's now known that a teacher went outside and propped the back door open to, I believe, get a cell phone. So this back door was open to this mass murderer to make entry to this school. That's one thing that can really reduce or stop this in a lot of cases, is to harden school security, just like we talked about on the previous episode. Now, not only do we care about protecting these children's lives, we also care about protecting their rights for the future, and future generations protect their rights that exist intrinsically to our very being and those children's being. Those rights, let me repeat, are intrinsic to our very lives. Further, of course, we care about making sure that future generations have the right, the Second Amendment right, to keep and bear arms, which is the most effective way to protect their lives. And let me also remind you, what good are any other rights if you are dead? If you are dead, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, they mean nothing to you. So self-defense, and the most effective way to defend yourself and your family, is extremely important. And we believe, like many, that the firearm is the most effective way. And I will go further and say that the AR-15 platform is the most effective, because it is easy to shoot for more people. It is more effective than pistols, and actually less of a overpenetration concern than pistol calibers. And I'm talking about properly chosen .223 or .556 ammunition. So I'd like to take some time to read a couple of articles. One is from NPR, which we know is a liberal source, but this is a great example of how these things are framed against us. It's from May 25th, and it's written by Saeed Ahmed. And then I'd like to read a National Review article, which is a fairly conservative source, by Clayton Cramer. So I'm going to start out with this NPR article, and it states here, the title is, "It's 21 weeks into the year, and America has already seen 213 mass shootings. On May 14th, a racist attack at a Buffalo, New York supermarket snatched the lives of 10 people and left 3 more injured. It was the deadliest mass shooting of the year in the United States. 10 days later, a gunman targeted a 4th grade class at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, killing 21. It was the deadliest school shooting in America since Sandy Hook. The 2 attacks are not outliers," they say. "Mass shootings happen in the U.S. with depressing regularity. Today is day 145, today is day 45 of the year, and the country has already experienced 213 mass shootings so far." Now let's be very clear. They use a very, very liberal way to count, quote, mass shootings, which includes mass shootings during gang-related violence, and that includes where individuals go, crazy and shoot their entire families. So they're conflating these types of shootings with the shootings that we see, such as these the Uvalde attack of the children. They're conflating what are not mass, indiscriminate public killings using firearms. So I'm going to continue here. Today is day 145 of the year, and the country has already experienced 213 mass shootings so far. 213 such attacks in 21 weeks. This averages out to about 10 a week. The tally comes from the Gun Violence Archive, which I believe is a source that, again, makes this a very liberal and all collective way to count these shootings. The group defines a mass shooting, listen to this, as an incident in which 4 or more people are shot or killed, excluding the shooter. Now, think about that. They're not talking about these mass shootings that were mass indiscriminate killings. They're simply talking about killings where someone was shot and there's more than 3 individuals shot. Such shootings, they say, are an American phenomenon, which is a lie. Now, back to this quote, "Mass shootings, as is well known by now, are a common recurrence in the United States. Around this time last year, the U.S. had experienced similar number of mass shootings, also about 10 a week. We ended 2021 with 693 mass shootings per the Gun Violence Archive again. The year before saw 611. In 2019, 417. I'm going to get a drink real quick here, guys. The massacres don't come out of nowhere, says Mark Folman, who has been researching mass shootings since 2012, when a gunman killed 12 people at a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. This is planned violence. There is, in every one of these cases, always a trial of behavioral warning signs, he told NPR earlier this month. Folman, the author of a new book, Trigger Points, says the role of mental health is also wildly misunderstood. The general public views mass shootings as people who are totally crazy, insane. It fits with the idea of snapping, as these people are totally detached from reality. That's not the case, he said. There's a very rational thought process that goes into planning and carrying out mass shootings. The suspect in the Uvalde attack is a high school student who bought at least 2 assault rifles, again a lie, shortly after his 18th birthday and shot his grandmother before going to the elementary school. The suspect in the Buffalo attack left behind a racist screed doning body honor and live streamed the attack. Now let's be very clear. They listed a few hundred killings and then conflated them with these very, very different concepts of indiscriminate public murders with a firearm. That is very key. And if anyone hearing these large numbers of statistics needs to really consider that, I said the other night that on the interview with Walt from the Distinguished Savage podcast that I think there were around 4 of these types of shootings. And forgive me, I did not research that to see if there were more, but I'm going by memory of basically these large, newsworthy events that are covered for days on end. Now I'd like to read this other article from National Review. And again, this is from Clayton E. Cramer. And this was actually written August 7th. And let me digress a little bit. Maybe I didn't say this, but that NPR article was just a few days ago on May 25th. So this is a really good article from Clayton Cramer that says, lost my space. My link went away here. Hold on a second. Sorry. We're focusing on the wrong thing. There is much focus this week on the role of guns in mass murders, but the history of such atrocities teaches us that other methods can be just as effective. Of course, we know that as gun owners and the ones that get forced into defending our rights. But back to the article. I am currently creating an encyclopedia of mass murder in America and have cataloged 504 incidents so far. So what he's saying is going through history. He's the history of the United States. He's cataloged 504, not an average of 10 a week, right? So common methods used throughout our history include axes, hatchets, blunt objects, knives, hanging, drowning, poison gas, poison, fire, and aircraft, and in parentheses, and not just on 9/11. Some of the rarer weapons demonstrate that where there is an evil will, there is a way. Now, just like we've talked about, that when there is evil, there's an evil way. There is an evil will, there is a way. And that's why attacking other people's Second Amendment rights to take away their AR-15, for instance, will not do a damn thing. Of course, the axes and hatchets were around because they were needed in an age when people cooked over wood stoves. I can imagine axe control fanatics in 1890 arguing that an axe in your home is more likely to be used against you than against an intruder. And perhaps it would have been true. The Church of the Sacrifice slaughtered dozens of families with their own axes in the early 20th century. Even today, there are a lot of non-firearm mass murders in America. In USA Today's collection of mass murders for the period of 2006 to 2017, nearly a quarter were done without guns. And most of them you have probably not heard of because they do not advance the left's cause of disarming the peasants. There's a 1973 mass murder of a gay bar in New Orleans that killed 32. An ejected customer went down the street and bought a can of cigarette lighter fluid and, of course, lit the club on fire. And then 87 murdered in New York City in 1990. A guy upset with his ex-girlfriend bought $1 worth of gasoline In 1986, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, union officers put pressure on an employer by using camp stove gas to murder 97 people. On July 5th of this year, a guy in Port Angeles, Washington, burned his trailer, killing his wife and 3 children. Did you see that on CNN? Well, nations with strict gun control laws still have mass murder. One man stabbed to death 5 people with a kitchen knife at a Calgary party. After the 1996 Port Arthur mass murder, Australia banned most semi-automatic rifles, but they still have mass murders. 8 siblings killed in a mass stabbing in Queensland. 5 bludgeoned to death in Sydney in 2009. Mass murders by arson are also a problem in such countries. Palace Backpackers Hostel in Childers, Queensland, was intentionally burned in 2000, killed 15. The 2001 Quakers Hill Nursing Home, fire killed 11, set by a nurse after the police questioned him about drug abuse. Japan has mass murders. In 1995, a sarin poison gas attacked and killed 13 and injured many more. In 2016, a former employee of a nursing home stabbed to death 19 of the patients. Remember, this is in Japan. 8 students were stabbed to death at an Osaka school in 2001. A combination vehicle and stabbing incident killed 7 in Tokyo in 2008. A father burned his wife and 5 children to death in Tokyo in 2017. Last month, 35 died when a man set fire to an anime studio. China, another society with strict gun laws, also have mass murderers. A 2014 terrorist knife attack in Kunming left 33 dead and 143 injured. A series of school attacks in the early 2010s killed at least 25 in total. While not all of these school attacks were mass murders, in parentheses, 5 or more killed in one attack, in parentheses, some meet the criteria. 8 school children murdered with a knife in Nanping in March 2010. 9 murdered in Hanzhong with a meat cleaver in 2010. Explosive mass murders have also happened and are very common. Now, I think I could probably stop here. You get the idea. Again, a good article from Clayton, Cramer in National Review. And again, the former article was by Saeed Ahmed from NPR. So this brings us to the issue at hand, which always comes up, right? Unfortunately, the assault weapons the so-called assault weapons, and let's mainly just focus on AR-15s, because that's usually what some of these mass murderers use that make the news. Now, think about this. It shows you how disingenuous they are to focus on these rifles. Pistols as firearms are most often used in any of these killings, even the broad stroke that they allow to bring in mass shootings and gang murder, etc. Now, more people are killed by blunt force trauma than any rifle. That includes bolt action rifles, single shot rifles, and all up into AR-15s and AK-47s. See, the reason why they focus on these weapons is because they can propagandize them as scary and unneeded, and the only thing they are used for or good for is to kill people. This is the furthest from the truth. again, if they were honest about what guns they want, if they want to reduce crime, they would go after handguns, because those are the guns most used, right, in crime and in firearms murders. But again, they can make people scared of the black rifles, and it's more palpable to outlaw those weapons as, again, another step, a Fabian step in ultimate disarmament. We don't know how long that would take, but again, it's one step at a time, and they will take one step at a time. Let's focus on what Joe Biden said this week, and that includes his very hasty press conference to quickly get in front and start the gun debate, and again put us on our heels to defend our rights. He went into a diatribe about why would anyone need an AR-15? No one needs an AR-15. Heck, unless deer are running through the woods with Kevlar vests. Something that needs to be made very clear is that the AR-15 usually is chambered in 223 or 5.56 millimeter. Now that is actually well known as a low-powered rifle cartridge, so low that you could not actually hunt deer. Joe Biden, you could not hunt deer or other game with this cartridge, because it was more likely to simply wound the animal, creating an inhumane death for the animal. Also, let me make clear to Joe Biden and anyone that likes to refer to hunting in the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. It has everything to do with the government not stopping individuals from having arms. And also, another thing to know, Joe Biden, yes, you could own a cannon during the time that the Second Amendment was ratified. You could own any type of weapon, any type of arm that you could afford. Okay? Now, enough of this topic. I appreciate you listening to this special show. Now, I'd like to ask you to please share this podcast, because maybe someone would hear this info and it might make them think and at least question what they're being told by the mass media, by Chuck Schumer, by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Let's repeat, these things cannot be stopped. These tragedies cannot be stopped by gun control. They can, however, be reduced by hardening security at soft targets, so-called gun-free zones. Thank you and have a good day.